Hey, good morning there. Welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show. So today we're doing a look back at a classic rock album from the 1970s. And coincidentally, and I don't know how this happened, but I decided that I picked this album a few days ago and worked on it a bit and did my research and listened to it a few times. I like to get prepared for the video. And then I discovered that it was released on November 21st, 1975. So 46 years ago today. So it's the anniversary of the album. So that's kind of neat. Anyways, as you know, this album is Queen's A Night at the Opera. Many consider to be their best album. It's not my personal favorite, but its greatness is not without understanding, right? Okay, so this was produced by Roy Thomas Baker and Queen in 1975, like I said, released on November the 21st on EMI label in Britain, and I believe Electrica in North America. It's 43 minutes long, approximately, a little bit more, I think. It was produced at several studios, Trident and Olympus in London, Rockfield and Monmouthshire in Lansdowne, and I think it was, I'm drawing a blank here. It was released. It was also done on Camden Scorpio's Sound in the Austin Tower. There was another place there too, but I just can't remember what it was right now. Anyways, couple of things to note. Obviously, it's its anniversary, so it's a good time to do it. There's lots of dubbing on this album, overdubbing if you want. It took a little bit of criticism for that when it first came out. I'm not really sure why that's such a critical point, especially on the vocals. There was a lot of like redubbing and extra added vocals from the three members who did most of the singing on this particular album. And I don't know why it took quite a bit of criticism for that. I don't really see why. I mean, lots of albums have gone back in and edited this and edited that and changed. Like even live albums, like the Kiss Alive album, had lots of editing on it for guitar solos and stuff like that. And people say, oh, it's this or it's that. But the truth of the matter is that it's still a great sounding album. They're producing something that people are going to want to listen to a lot, or they want them to listen to a lot. So they're going to do their best to do whatever they think is going to make that happen, right? And in this case, they wanted a lot of vocal harmonies, and they got tons of them. Trust me, there's lots on this album. So of course, this is a Queen album, so it features the personnel on this album. For those of people who perhaps don't know about Queen or don't know who's in the band or know anything about it, they had a classic lineup which featured Freddie Mercury on vocals, Brian May on guitars and orchestra backdrop, Roger Taylor on percussion, and John Deacon on the bass. Okay, so anyways, what we're going to do is I'm just going to go through the album and talk about why it's such a classic and why I like it so much. So I'm going to show it to you once more, and then we'll talk about the songs. Okay, so among the first songs, the first song on the album, Death on Two Legs, was a song written by Freddie Mercury, and the vocals, of course, were by Freddie Mercury. It has a really heavy opening. Like, I don't know how to describe the guitar. It's very heavy. Lots of guitar soloing on this album. The vocals, a lot of overdubbing and harmonies on this particular song. And I think, from what I've read and what people have told me, the song was written because Queen had released 3 previous albums to this that they had done on Trident and hadn't seen much money for that, or very little, if anything. And so they got a kind of a bitter feeling towards record labels, and they're not the only ones that had these problems, but in their particular case, they wrote this song Death on Two Legs, which is kind of about a corporation sucking all your money out of you and your life out of you if they can. It's unfortunate because those first three albums are really good. Um, then the next track is Lazy on a Sunday Afternoon. It's a kind of tongue-in-cheek song. Freddie does his kind of wispy vocal up and down type thing that he likes to do. And I really like this song. As I do with most of the songs on this album, there's not really, maybe the last track I'm not overly crazy about, but for the most part, I really love most of the stuff that you see on this album. And so there you go. So the next track is I'm in Love with My Car, which was written by Taylor. He took a little bit of heat for this. Some people didn't really get what he was doing about the song, but it's a very heavy song. Lots of guitaring, heavy drums, really good track. One of my, I would say it's probably third or fourth favorite on the album. You're My Best Friend, maybe my favorite track on this album. Pretty close. It's a bit of a poppy song written by John Deacon. He also plays the electric piano on this, which is kind of neat. It's more of a poppy song, so it's kind of radio friendly, and it was, of course, written by him. So, no, sorry, it was written by John Deacon. It has some really catchy beats to it. It's just one of those songs, and you know what? The best part about the song is it's kind of held its time up very well. Like it's over time, it's still one of those albums that really, people really like this song. It's one of the favorites on the album. The next song up is 39, which I think doesn't have as much popularity as some of the other songs in the album, but it is really a cool tune. When I think of this song, it starts out with an acoustic guitar, and then there's a bit of a folky sound to it, I guess is what I'm looking for. And this is one of the songs that Brian May does vocals on, which is quite good. Like, I mean, I didn't know that he had done the vocals on this till I did some research, but it's quite good. It's a song that is memorable. Probably one of my top 5 tracks on the album. If you haven't heard it, it's worth a listening to, that song, and just for that song alone. The next song up is Sweet Lady. It's a fairly heavy track. I don't mind it. It's not one of my favorite songs in the album, but I don't turn it off when it comes on. And then the last or the next song on the track is Seaside Rendezvous, which is kind of a vaudevilles type song. It uses brass and windward instruments on it. Brian May wrote this song. It kind of gives that feeling like you're in the 30s and 40s again, and it's very different. But Queen was a master of this. They weren't just one type of band playing either just hard rock or progressive rock or pop rock. They mixed it up good, and they had lots of different stuff on it. The only band that come to mind that did that kind of stuff and did it effectively was Van Halen, another band that did a lot of this kind of similar stuff. They're quite similar in a lot of ways. The Prophet song was written by May. That's the next song up. A song that is, I find, very similar to the song White Man on their Day at the Races album. It's kind of talking about, I think it's talking about Aboriginal people in North America, about how, and Iron Maiden did this too with their Run to the Hills, about how they were oppressed and stuff like that. A lot of great harmonies. It's a fantastic song for that. Many riffs, a lot of riffing. Freddie Mercury's all over not Freddie Mercury, Brian May's all over this song. And I think it's also the longest song on, if I don't, oh, here it is. Yeah, it's 8:17. It's the longest song on this album, which is fairly long for a Queen song. 8 minutes is a lot. But there's a lot of different textures to the song. There's a heavy texture, there's a kind of a milder texture to it. But a really cool song. I put it up there, probably in my top 5 as well. The next song is Love of My Life, which is a vocal kind of song. written, of course, by Freddie Mercury. And this song, Brian May plays a harp on. At the beginning, he does a kind of acoustic guitar bit and a harp part as well, which is really adds to the difference of the song, which makes it, of course, unique, which is what you want. You want your songs to be somewhat unique and fresh, which is what you get a lot of on this album. And of course, Freddie has a great vocal range on this. He's like mild, and then he goes very high. The guy is just, many consider him to be the greatest vocalist in rock history. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's definitely one of the top ones. There's no doubt about that. Then we have the 10th track on the song, which is called Good Company, and Brian May wrote this. He also sings this song, and it's clearly different than the other one, 39, which I wasn't sure. I thought it might have been Freddie and some accompanying vocals. But on this song, it's clear that it's Brian May singing. You can hear his voice clearly. It's another poppy vaudeville type folky song, which they did a couple of on here. It's just different. It's not something that you hear a lot of from rock bands, but they could do it, and they did it well. There's some people may attempt to try and do this kind of stuff, but it doesn't come across very well. But for these guys, it does. And then, of course, you get to the legendary track on the album, which is considered by many to be their top track and one of the premium top rock songs in history of rock music. And that is, of course, Bohemian Rhapsody, written by Freddie Mercury. Lots of overdubbing on this, lots of vocal harmonies. Freddie, John, and Brian all contributing lots of vocal harmonies to this and lots of overdubbing. Big production song. It's very operatic. It has operatic aspects to it. It has poppy and heavy aspects. The guitar at the end, which they show in Wayne's World, where they're headbanging to it. That part is really cool. That was probably one of the first reasons I listened to Queen, is because that guitar was cool in that song. What else can you say about this song? It's legendary. To me, it's probably overplayed. It's kind of like Stairway to Heaven's or Roundabout from Yes. They're a bit overplayed. Doesn't make them any less a great song. They're all great songs, but just too much. Like you can beat something too far, and I think that's the problem with this song, and that has a lot to do with Queen having kind of had a bit of a renaissance in the recent 3 or 4 years, where they've come up and actually been elevated in status to almost legendary status, even comparable to Led Zeppelin, which I think is a bit overstating how well they did, in my opinion. But still, nevertheless, people have come to really appreciate their music much after Freddie Mercury's death and the demise of the band, so to speak. Even though they had Paul Rodgers in there for a while, I'm not sure really if that qualifies as Queen, in my opinion. And then there's the last track, which is God Save the Queen, a pretty unforgettable track. It's something that was left over from their time at Trident, and they threw it on the album. It's got that anthem that they always play for the Queen when she comes out, but there's no vocals or anything on it, so I don't dislike the track, but it's pretty forgettable. And then there's a couple of bonus tracks on this album as well, on this particular one that I have. One of them is I'm in Love with My Car. The other one is You're My Best Friend. They're just remixes of the same songs. Pretty cool remixes too. They're not bad. So for me, this album came out at a time when I was it actually came out before the time, but it was one of those albums that I started to getting into after I went through my initial introduction to rock with Kiss, and only would listen to Kiss for the longest time. And then in late 1978, I started listening to some other bands, which included Queen, Black Sabbath, Styx, Rush. Those bands all became bands I started listening to, and Queen actually was at one point probably next to Kiss my second favorite band. They're not up there anymore for me. I went through a period of time in the where I was disillusioned by their stuff in the 80s, but this happened with many bands, not just Queen, but a lot of them. But unfortunately for Queen, it had a longer impact than a lot of the other bands. I didn't get back into them until probably after my daughter's birth, and then only a little bit, and then with the recent renaissance and the over escalation of their importance in rock, it kind of hit me kind of negatively, so I still didn't get into them. But recently, since I started this channel, probably I started listening to a lot of stuff, going back and giving stuff another chance. And this was one of those albums I had on the shelf, and I just decided, you know what, this album deserves some love. It deserves to be recognized as one of the truly great albums of its genre and of its time. So there you have it. Queen, A Night at the Opera. If you are not a Queen fan or don't know who they are, maybe you've been on another planet, I don't know. This album is as good as any Queen album out there. I would probably recommend it as a starting point. There's other albums I prefer more, but you're not going to go wrong by getting this album. It's very different from a lot of rock albums too, so give it a try. Oh, the one thing I forgot about this album, and it was a curiosity. I knew this a long time ago and had forgotten it, but it was the title they got from the Marx Brothers film of the same name, and that's where they got the idea for it. So I think it's a great album. So there you have it. So I will be doing some other stuff. I'm not quite sure what. I've had to rearrange a few things here at the studio and come up with some new ways of doing things, which I think is going to improve the quality of these lookbacks. And I feel like I've done something like that already today with this one. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please like the video and subscribe if you want me to do more of this content. So I hope you have a good day, and this is Murph for Prog Monster. Have a good one.